Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's Appeon community webinar. Today's topic is the Web Services Crash Course with PowerBuilder 2017, which will also cover the Appeon Web add-on solution for PowerBuilder, which helps to deploy your PowerBuilder applications to the web and the cloud. Today's community presenter is Marco Meoni, who's joining us from Italy. And he's an Appeon expert, and he's going to tell you all about his background, but we're very excited to have him today to do this community presentation. But before we begin with Marco, I do want to put up a quick disclaimer to just remind the audience that this is a community presentation. It's on a volunteer basis. The views here are that of the author, not of Appeon. So just, keep that in mind as you're hearing the information. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Marco so he can share all the web services knowledge with you folks. Hi, Marco.
Hello. Thank you, Armin. And good summer day, everyone. It's very hot in Italy today. It's almost 45 Celsius degrees. So indeed, I have been around PowerBuilder since 1995 with version 4.0. And I became Appeon certified almost a decade ago when I went to China undergoing advanced training. Although I started with Appeon sometimes in 2003, that was version 2.6 if I'm not mistaken. However, I have put my hands in a few dozen of projects for converting PowerBuilder applications to Appeon Web and Mobile, and I'm often invited speaker at PowerBuilder World Tours and PowerBuilder user groups or Appeon events. I do work also in the field of healthcare management system, and I collaborate with university and research institutes implementing predictive models on big data infrastructure using machine learning techniques. So that was me in a nutshell. Let's see a quick outline of the agenda today. It's a crash course in web service programming from the new PowerBuilder 2017. I will start with a short background knowledge of SOAP web services, what is the WSDL, and what are the PowerBuilder 2017 requirements. Then we move to an extensive hands-on part where we learn how to create a SOAP web service from PowerBuilder. And this web service will connect a database and return elementary and structured data. Afterwards, we're going to consume it, and we'll see two approaches: by writing PowerBuilder code that leverages a proxy object, both in PowerBuilder and also in Appeon, or by using a data window with web service data source. I assume you already know how to install and configure Appeon Power Server Web or Mobile, because that's the PowerBuilder 2017 plugin that you may want or you may want to not use. It's up to you. But it's good to know that you can use web services also from your PowerBuilder when your PowerBuilder application when it is migrated to the web or to a mobile device. Of course, we practice not only how to retrieve database information from the web service, but also how to perform updates. So, in essence, SOAP web services are a collection of operations that can be deployed, described, and accessed over the network using standard XML messages. The biggest advantage is that the communication is both platform and language independent. Let's say you can write a SOAP web service in Java, you deploy it to a Linux server, and call it from a PowerBuilder client on a Windows desktop. Just remember that web services are stateless. That is, they do not persist any state between a request from the client. The two main components of SOAP web services are the WSDL, an abbreviation for Web Service Description Language. It is an XML syntax that describes the methods and the parameter types. And the second component is SOAP, an XML envelope used for transportation in order to exchange requests and responses between client and server. Concerning the PowerBuilder requirements, web service programming is based on the .NET framework. That is, just to clarify, from PowerBuilder you can only deploy web services to Microsoft IIS, but of course you can write clients for any web service. Before practicing, let me show the relevant steps in PowerBuilder 2017. All you need to do to actually deploy a new web service is to use the .NET Web Service target that you have in the IDE. It creates an empty PowerBuilder MVO, and the wizard, of course, lets you specify the web service URL and many other properties that we are going to see. And what you get in your space at the end of the wizard is essentially, you see on the picture on the right, a PowerBuilder target with an empty MVO, in this case, N web service, and a deployment project, P web service, that makes all the work and converts it to .NET code running on Microsoft IIS. On the other side, if you want to consume the web service that you have just deployed, or any other web service available on the internet, you have few options according to your deployment platform. Of course, let's start with PowerBuilder Desktop Client. That is, you have a standard Windows executable that is compiled from PowerBuilder 2017. What you have to do, you click on File, New, Project, and then choose this icon here, Web Service Proxy Wizard. In there, you need to specify the wizard URL, and PowerBuilder will generate a .NET assembly, a .NET DLL, that takes care of the sub-XML heavy lifting. When the wizard completes, you have a proxy object in the library, this one. Just deploy it, and you will get a green icon, and web service, for example, this guy here. That is, in fact, the real proxy object, the actual proxy object. It is a wrapper that is being called by the client to access the real serving objects behind the scenes. There are some pre-requirements here. You need to import a PowerBuilder extension from the shared PowerBuilder dir on your disk. And this extension adds to your project the 3 MVO that you see in this blue box. They take care of the lower levels of communication. At this point, you're ready to actually call a web service. The code to the right declares a variable of type proxy object, so N web service, and then that corresponds to the public web service from the previous slide. After that, the system function create instance, here, this line, creates an instance of the proxy so that you can call the actual method of your web service. In this example, I'm using OFSum, and I pass a couple of parameters if needed. And of course, it is a good practice to trap any exception within a try-catch construct. Now, the equivalent code from the Appion perspective. First step is to include the Appion workaround PBL. It is a library that you may want to include in your project, and the library is copied during the Appion installation and contains a set of APIs that facilitate the implementation of features that are not available from the PowerBuilder IDE. Here you find an MVO that is called Appion Web Service Component, which works as the proxy object that we have seen in PowerBuilder. So it calls the web services. The common call workflow is the following. You declare in any array containing all arguments of the web service method that you expect to call. In this example, there are 2 input arguments, the 2 numbers that you want to sum. Then you create a local instance of Appion Web Service Component, this line, and specify some properties. I will go into details of these properties when we practice. And finally, you execute the method OF call web service, which calls the function in the binding web service with the parameter arrays to compute the sum of 2 numbers. And then you have this property return value that gives you the real value. Sounds good, because you do not need to include PowerBuilder extensions and deploy proxy projects, but you have some limitations because arguments and return values must be of standard data types, whereas in PowerBuilder native applications, you can in fact pass and return any kind of object. Second option you may want to choose if consuming a web service is the web service data window. That is very powerful and yet very handy. In fact, you can use regular data window and select web service as data source. So in this panel, you see the usual wizard, but you see you have an icon web service. Maybe it's an option that you never paid attention to because normally data windows connects database tables or stored procedure, but you can select web service, point it to the usual whistle, or give a .NET assembly that is already on disk, and then you have the web service input parameters automatically defined as retrieval arguments, and the web service output parameters and return value that are mapped as output for your data window object, no matter what presentation style you use. So just think about it. You use a data window object and all its methods that you love, like update, insert row, delete row, on a data source that is not a database table or stored procedure, but is an actual web service. So you can use retrieve, you can use update. I think it's just great. So very good. It is demo time. So we switch to PowerBuilder. This is PowerBuilder 2017. If you haven't installed PowerBuilder 2017 yet, you see the IDE reflects that one from previous PowerBuilder version, although Power Bar's icons have changed a little bit. And also you can find the Power Server toolkit, which enables the entire PowerBuilder to web or PowerBuilder to mobile process from within the IDE. So let's move on and we create our first web service. As I said, a web service that connects the database, perform retrieves, and return some data. I have an ODBC connection to the sample database, the sample PowerBuilder database that you all can find when PowerBuilder 2017 installation completes. Here it exists a few tables. We're going to play, for example, with employee, this table over here, and this table has some 75 rows, 75 employees with several attributes. So first of all, I want to create a new workspace. That is normal. So let me go under this webcast folder, and I'm going to call it employee. Very good. Then we create a new .NET Web Service target. So again, we click new, and then say target, and you choose .NET Web Service. Now you follow the wizard, and you give a name to the deployment project, say, I don't know, P employee, to the PowerBuilder MVO that PowerBuilder is going to create, and find an employee. And you also specify the web root of your web service. We leave it employee, or in general, you can just keep the default name, and you complete the wizard. We say that I'm going to deploy the web service to localhost, and all the public methods of this MVO will become the web service function. So I finish, and in fact here I have my new target, the PBL, and the empty MVO that I'm going to fill up. So in there, what we start from, we add the new function that we can call OF get emp count, because it is meant to retrieve the number of employees from the demo database. The general idea in all examples we are going to see is to have an integer return value. That's just an idea, suggestion, that basically sends a return code whether the function succeeds or not. And the outputs instead are returned by the reference. So in this case, we want to count how many employees are stored in the table. So we may want to return by reference its number. So let's make it AL rows. Of course, I have the code already here. I have just to speed up a little bit, and this is the code. So the good thing when you develop web services in PowerBuilder from PowerBuilder, you can use a standard Datastore to perform the data retrieval. And this is a great feature because all data handling is very simple, but yet very powerful. So you see, in this case, I want to connect to the database. That's the ODBC parameters of my database. I make the connection. If the connection works, then I'm going to use a Datastore, which I'm going to now add to my PBL, and I perform the retrieve. And of course, I'm going to return the number of rows. I already have the Datastore. I think it's on the desktop. Yes, there it is. It's just standard Datastore. Datastore that connects to the database and of course retrieves the 75 employees. All right, now we deploy the web service. And this can be done opening the web service project. So I save this. That's my function, getEmpCount. Now I open up the proxy project, the web service project. And it consists of several tab pages. Under the general tab page, you will review the deployment URL with the service name. The deploy tab page instead shows whether PowerBuilder is going to deploy the MVO directly to IIS running on localhost in this case, or should create an MSI installer, just in case you want to install the web service on a remote server that is not reachable from the PowerBuilder IDE. And in the third tab page, you see the WSDL URL that the client will need to parse, as well as the list of methods that you want to make public. So here you have the methods defined in the MVO. Just remember to flag the function that you want to make public. So OF getEmpCount will be public. When it is finished, you save and you deploy. And yeah, PowerBuilder is going to generate the web service and deploy to IIS the relevant descriptors and all the libraries. Of course, you can also right-click on this icon, and it is the same thing. Now, I do not have yet an Appeon client or a PowerBuilder application to test the web service, but I can use any browser to open a simple client interface. So just click on the project and navigate to either the WSDL. You see a bunch of XML that says, first of all, okay, I have my OF getEmpCount method that is publicly available. And you can also run the web service from the browser. So at least you see the function that is published and some sub-envelope with the XML for the request and the response. Okay, that was just for the theory. Right, so let's consume the web service from a real PowerBuilder application. First of all, we create a standard PowerBuilder application. So we say new target application and say, I'm going to call it employee client. Right, that's my target. Second of all, do not forget to include the PB extension, which in PowerBuilder 2017 you find under C and then program files Appeon shared PowerBuilder, and it is called PowerBuilder Web Service Client 17.0 WebEx. And in fact, here you have the three MVO which take care of the SOAP communication. Now we click on File, New, and we choose Web Service Proxy Wizard from this icon. And let's copy, first of all, in the clipboard the WSDL, because it is needed to generate the proxy. So copy. I select is current target, and I'm gonna say use .NET Engine. I paste the whistle, and okay, I see here the service name, and I go ahead with the wizard. Say you want to store the project within our client target, and finish. Now, we just deployed this newly created proxy project in the library. So we save, we deploy. What happens, you see this green icon. This green icon will show up, and this is in fact the actual proxy object, a wrapper that is called by the client, by the PowerBuilder application, to access the real serving objects behind the scenes. All is now ready to actually call a web service. So let me just create a standard window. So PowerBuilder object window, and I'm gonna put on this window a simple button, which I call amp count from PowerBuilder, and I save it as wmain. Of course, in the application object, I'm gonna open it. We open wmain, and that is fine to run the application. And in my button, I wanna copy the code, the client code from a PowerBuilder application. So let's see how it works. This code declares a var of type SOAP connection for the SOAP heavy lifting, and a second var of same type of the proxy object. In our case, the proxy object, the green guy, is an employee. So we declare a var of an employee type. This proxy corresponds to the public web service. After that, the function create instance creates an instance of the proxy so that you can call the actual method that is of getCount. The result is stored in a variable, and it is supposed to output the number of employees. Remember, it was 75, so we can save, we can run it and check it out. So this is my my application. I click here, and I get 75. So that's the first call to our web service. It is the web service that connects to the database, retrieves the employees, and then returns their number, 75, to the client. Now we can deploy to Appeon and make it capable also of calling the remote web service. So as we have discussed during the slideshow, Appeon provides its own implementation of proxy objects. So we need to create an instance of that MVO that is called Appeon Web Service component. First of all, we need to add the Appeon workaround library. Of course, we add it to the client, so we click on Properties and then Browse, and in PowerBuilder 2017, you find it under different paths. It is in inet, 3W root, and then Appeon, developed and file workarounds, and Appeon workarounds. All right, that's the workaround library. It contains a lot of objects, a lot of functions, a lot of structures. Let me explain briefly the general content of any MVO that you find in this PBL. And to this extent, just open the Appeon Web Service component that we're going to use. So you see, it's basically empty. You can find functions, but essentially they do nothing. This is because these objects are meant to be a placeholder for Appeon. When Appeon converts the PowerBuilder code and finds them, it replaces these placeholders with actual web or mobile code. And on the other hand, when you compile them in a standard PowerBuilder desktop application, the calls do nothing, but this lets you compile the code and build up the executable. It's good, because one source code deployment to many platforms. So let's see how to consume the web service from an Appeon application. The client is right here. Let me copy it. Okay, let's open up wmain, and we add a new button, which we call mcount from Appeon. And then in there, you can paste the code. And so you create an instance of Appeon Web Service component, and then you specify a number of properties and make the call. So all in all, first thing to do is you instantiate an object of type Appeon Web Service component, and you set call type. If it is 1, it means that Appeon is going to create a proxy dynamically from the WSDL URL. If you specify the value 2, you can use a proxy in a local DLL file. Of course, if you use Appeon for Java Enterprise Edition, you can only use the first option. The second parameter is proxy DLL or URL, and in there you specify the URL of the web service to be called, or the DL name in case call type is 2. And finally, you have class description that contains the class name of the deployed web service, and you can use this option if the call type is a DLL. So now we can call OF call web service, this interface method, where we specify the function in the binding web service and optionally the parameters array for the web service function. So remember here we are going to call OF.mcount. We are expect to get the 75 employees in the first element of the array, which is the argument by reference in the web service. Nice, let's save it, and it is time to deploy the client application I'm going to use Appeon Web in this case. I assume you know how to configure IIS on your Windows machine, and you have already installed Appeon Server. If you did, you can use the Appeon toolbar from the PowerBuilder IDE. I already have an application profile here that is called employee, and let me briefly go through it. You see it deploys the employee client target, and I don't really use any additional particular Appeon application settings because my PowerBuilder client has a very simple GUI and doesn't need any transaction object because no database is connected directly. So we use the web service. Okay, with this in mind, we can run a full deployment of the application. So first time, full deployment, okay. And during this process, Appeon organizes the PowerBuilder code, translates it to web files, and copy to the server. Right, 3 steps. We can see, we can see there are a few errors, and that we can view from the deployment log. Appeon says that it is unable to parse the tree MVO coming from the PBX file, SOAP connection, SOAP exception, and SOAP PB cookie, and also the PowerBuilder proxy object and employee. This is just fine. They are all binary objects, so Appeon cannot translate it, but we can keep them in the library because, as I said, it's a desirable feature to have one single source code in your workspace and deploy to desktop, to mobile, or to web platforms. Okay, now we run it. We just run it from the browser, and we have the 2 buttons. You see, this is our application that is running in the browser, and we call it from Appeon. So the second button shows the return value from the function and the 75 employees that we get from the table. And of course, if you click on the other button, it does anything. It does nothing because, as I said, it is based on the PowerBuilder proxy object that in Appeon is just ignored. Okay, so we can call the web service either from PowerBuilder desktop application and Appeon application. Now let's make the web service more interesting. I don't want to retrieve only the number of employees in the company, but their names along with some additional information. I can retrieve the list of employees using a Datastore that we have seen because our function uses Datastore, but The problem is a web service cannot actually return a PowerBuilder object like a Datastore. So the trick is to copy the Datastore to an array of structure. Let me explain that. First of all, in my web service, I'm going to import a simple PowerBuilder structure. I have it on my desktop again, and it is this one, as employees. It's very simple. So this structure contains as many fields as the number of columns in the Datastore. Remember, this is the Datastore. You can compare the two of them, and yeah, same number of columns and same types. So employee ID, first name, last name, department ID, and salary. Now we create a new function in the MVO that I'm gonna call OF get employees. And this function, which is already here, yep. So it has the same structure of the other one. So connect to the database and retrieve into the Datastore. Here it is. But there is a little trick. First of all, I'm gonna return by reference, as I said, an array of structure. And my structure is as employees, and I'm gonna call it emp, okay? An array of as employees. And this line at the end makes a trick, because you know, it can copy, it copies the data source into the emp array in one go. Okay. Okay, I can save it. It is by reference, of course, because I'm supposed to return an array of structure, and I'm going to deploy it again. I open up the project, I go to objects. Remember, you have to flag the new functions, and you save it and deploy. Okay, so that is good. We can test the function, and but in this case, I don't want to use the proxy object. I want to show you the other approach. I want to show now the second possibility for consuming a web service. That is the web service data window. So let me copy once again the whistle, because of course we always need it. Remember if I deploy it. So let's again. So you can indeed create a data window object in your client application. So new data window, let's say tabular, and select the data source as web service. So here we paste the whistle, or you can also give the assembly name. So we just overwrite the one previously created by PowerBuilder because it has the same name. And here, in addition to the service name, you see the functions that you can use to retrieve and present the data. So we select get employees, and then you select the return values that will be displayed by the data window. So in this case, the emp array of structure. And you click, you finish, and you can even preview the results in your PowerBuilder ID. You see? 75 rows, which are returned by the web service. It's not a direct connection to the database. It is the result of a web service method. And this is where the web service data window rocks. You can use it anytime you must present or update data, like you are used to with regular SQL sources. And in fact, now we can add, so we save it. We give a name, say the employees employee web service. Okay. And I'm gonna add a data window control on my window. And I bind it to the employee web service. Let's put some scroll bar. And for instance, I can say in the constructor, or you may want to add a button, it's up to you, just retrieve. Okay, let me run in PowerBuilder. And take a few seconds because it connects the web service. But you see, you get the 75 rows within the data window, just with one single line of code. Now, now it is time to update my table through the web service. First thing to do is to provide a method that, given the employee ID, performs, for instance, an update of the name. So what I want to do, I create a new method here that I call OF update, same structure, and I'm gonna say I get the parameter, which is the employee ID, and then I want to get a couple of strings, for example, employee last name and employee first name. And I have it here, tag, paste. So this is very simple. This OF update essentially connects to the database and update the employee table and sets last name and first name where the employee ID corresponds to the employee ID arguments, and then commit, disconnects, etc., etc. Very simple. So it updates one line in the database. And this OF update becomes the trick to be used in the web service data window. So we deploy, select OF update, save and deploy. Okay. Now, if you open the web service data window in the client application, you can see an item that maybe you are not used to. It is called web service update. You just need to type once again the whistle URL, or you can also load the proxy in the .NET DLL that you have already on disk, because it was created by the data window wizard. So it's up to you. Select and load, and then select the web service name. We have only one, and the method name from the list, so we select OF update. The parameters used in the web service method are displayed in the argument name list in the order in which they are defined in the web service. And column name lists the column used by your data window object. So we have just to associate data window column to web service parameter. Last name and first name. Finally, you select the original, use original when the web service parameter is used in the where clause of an update or delete SQL statement for a web service method. Remember, we have an update SQL statement in our OF update function, so we flag use original. Instead, you would not use the original value, but rather the new one when it is needed for an insert SQL statement. So we save the data window. And let me also make it a little nicer to fit the data window control size. So let's say edit, select all text, make it yellow background, some border, and yeah, this goes here, and of course this goes here, and then select all column, and then we can make a better alignment, and we adjust the width. All right, so save it. And of course, now we can add a button in order to call the update method. So we just need to type datawindow1.update. We can put a message box when it completes. Of course, you can check the error codes like for the regular data window control, but instead of using the DB error, instead of using the DB error event, you can instead of using DB error, you can use a web service error, and you have a number of parameters and arguments that you can use to see whether the web service update works. Let me call it update. We save and run, and then of course we are going to change some names. Here was a test, so we can put Marco and then Duke. Call update, and the update completes. And of course, if I run again the application, I see that the names are changed. All right, and by the way, if you are planning to use the Appeon plugin in the new PowerBuilder 2017, you can also deploy the web service data window to your Appeon application, no matter if it is converted to web or mobile. It is a fully supported feature that works out of the box. And all in all, just remember a few things when using web service data window. The big plus is that you don't need to create proxy objects, but you can access database data and present them in a data window presentation, in any data window presentation format. The supported result types are elementary, or structures of simple types, or array of elementary, or array of structure. So in essence, any result that you can present as rows and columns. All right, thank you very much for your attention. There would be much more to say when talking of web service programming, but I hope I gave you some useful how-tos. If you happen to program web services from the new PowerBuilder 2017, all code examples from today's webcast will be shared by Appeon after it's published online.